A question period like this is an opportunity to ask or say or question anything about sitting alone or sitting together, about what is happening in your daily life, or here at the center, and to feel free to do this. It's not important to formulate a question well, but to ask what is on your mind. Anyone else wishes to comment or take up the question, that is, it's all right to do so. Or if you yourself feel that the response is inadequate or doesn't clarify what you're asking, then to continue asking. You have to be mindful that there are other people who may want to do the same thing. There's no need to raise your hand, just ask questions when no one else is doing so.
I have a question to do with monogamy and the conditioning in our culture with regard to monogamous relationships.
Monogamous?
Yeah. Well, say the monogamous ideal.
What is your question? I don't quite understand.
Well, a lot of books I've read, including one by a Japanese Zen master, and things that I've heard spiritual teachers on occasion say is that they seem to promote monogamy as kind of a higher type of relationship, or more evolved type of male-female relationship. And this has caused problems recently for this person. I also became aware of some old acquaintances who were involved in kind of adultery type of situations, which was kind of painful for me, even though I just saw it happen. It was just kind of painful because I didn't know whether I should say anything to anybody involved in it or not, and I didn't. I mean, I felt it wasn't my place to say anything, but it was still painful seeing that. And it kind of brought up the whole idea of, this whole question too, in a sense, that our culture seems to have that ideal so strongly, and yet, just reading the statistics on marriages, which are failing, at the rate of something like 50%, and all the people running around on each other anyway, it seems like maybe either there's something wrong with that ideal, or else people aren't just ready to uphold it. It seems kind of foolish to make it so, something that should be, that something should strive for if it's contrary to, genetic or whatever conditioning or biochemical or whatever.
So you're asking me to speak out on my opinions on this? I
don't know if it's opinions. If you could say something about the conditioning, like how one could decide for oneself what one's own path would be, in terms of seeing into the conditioning and into this.
How does one see into conditioning? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. With regard to matters that involve a lot of emotion, and also there's a lot of cultural conditioning as well as biological conditioning that may or may not jive with the cultural conditioning.
First of all, I wouldn't have any assumptions about what is a biological or genetic conditioning in this matter. I don't know. There is in certain societies this ideal of, and it's not just socially conditioned, it's religiously conditioned, of just being married once, and yet the same society condones relationships on the side. It's happening everywhere. Society, well, what is society? Society is how we live together. How this idea or ideal of monogamy developed, I haven't studied it. It makes sense that for the sake of stability for children, it's good if mother and father stay together, but a monogamous or a vow to stay together does not guarantee any stability for the children. Even if both parents are there, there can be fight, open or concealed, but the children will feel it. So why is there this ideal of just being married to one person? Why do we have any ideals? Is it because we don't want to see and observe what is really going on and rather think of what ought to be going on? It is nonsensical to have ideals and not understand one's feelings, one's desires, how they arise. How they are fulfilled, and then there's indifference, there's getting used to it, there's a longing for new things, for new feelings, for new relationships. Of course, the ideal of monogamy is really successive. It's all right to divorce, just to have one partner at one time, and then there's the possibility of divorce and then have another one. Is that monogamy? How are we living? Isn't that important to understand? And why are we living the way we do? So this was one of your questions. Well, how can one see one's conditioning? Why can't we see it? It's very plain. When desire comes up, longing, wanting, fulfilling, and then the getting used to it, the dissatisfaction with routine, looking for new excitement, or relationships just moving apart when one has one's own interests. Each partner has different interests, so there's no reason to stay together. One interferes with each other, or one is bored with each other. One feels one doesn't understand each other, one doesn't support the other. And how does one draw conclusions from this? We have to separate, we have to find our new way. Who can tell? You can only do this yourself. Or does one try to work things out? And then in what way? One person trying to dominate the other, and one person submitting to the other? Or to look together at one's deeply conditioned self-centeredness? Me first, so to speak. My interests come first. To even see that. We take it so much for granted. But you say, how can I see it? Do you need to see it? If you need to see it, you look and you observe and you watch. Very objectively, very impartially, because you want to find out. Now you say that there's pain at observing other people. You said commit adultery, did you say that?
Yes.
Meaning they are in a married relationship and yet one or the other partner is having sexual relations with other people?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why do you want to know why they do it? Well, if you really want to know, can you ask the people? Can you sit down and talk about it together? Or is it impossible? I don't want to talk about it. Then you can find out from this person, but usually the same things that drive other people drive oneself. Even though one may not do it overtly, one does it in fantasy. One may sleep with dozens of women in one's fantasy. Never do it overtly, but when there's the longing there for it, just sees a woman, there's the imagination, how nice it would be to be in bed together. Why? Why this longing for that? Is there an intimacy maybe that one hopes to find that is nowhere else in one's life? Possibility of relinquishing this me for maybe a few seconds, or at least one hopes to do that, or the sensuous pleasure of it. But one gets used to it, one gets used to people. Why? It's because one builds up memories of this person, of how it is with this person, and therefore the memory sort of is in the way when one doesn't really see the person freshly. Therefore thinks, I have to see someone else to see somebody new. Whereas what's in the way is not the person himself or herself, but one's ideas, one's memories of this person. But one doesn't see that. So one thinks one has to find someone new. And then the same thing happens over and over again. Or, why should two people live together for the rest of their life? You talked about stability for children. Is that stability there? Is there really a relationship there? Just because one stays together and has the show of monogamy, is there really a relationship between the two people? Or is there hatred, frustration, irritation with each other? And no relationship, only the facade of it. Is there any usefulness in ideals? Or do they totally distract us from seeing what is really going on and coming to grips with it, oneself? Understanding this whole process of desiring, of satisfying, of fulfilling, of wanting, of living in ideas and images, and therefore so isolated, cut off from really feeling deeply, not just during sexual intercourse. And even there may not be deep feeling because there's still fantasies before, during, and after. Are there? Then there's no relationship. we're biologically conditioned to live this way or that way, but how do we live? When they're children, do the children come first, providing shelter, security, care for little children? Or is my interest and my concern and my life the most important thing? I have to fulfill it. And I can't fulfill it here. But maybe life is hell for the children anyways, because mother and father constantly battle or are irritated at each other, then maybe it's better to separate. It's usually children that get the most hurt in it. Can one look at the whole thing? And you have to start looking in yourself, because all of this goes on in oneself, either, as we said before, in overt action or in fantasy. Wanting and tiring and wanting again. And the big role of thinking and imagining that is played. Now, if an emotion comes up, strong affection for a person, we just wrote up something today on this very subject for the next newsletter. Strong emotion of affection comes up. Can one feel that? Completely. Without immediately translating it into thoughts and projections, what I'm going to do, what I shouldn't do, what I will do or won't do, but just stay with this feeling. Feel it in its profundity. I'm talking right now about feeling affection for a person who is married to someone else. Or is immediately the scheming starting also? Who's going to win out? Am I going to be attractive? To prove to oneself. All of this happens very unawares. To prove to oneself that one is attractive. Which is really a form of self-love. Can one hold it for a moment and just look at the total situation? The effects on other people, the hurts, and yet ideals have no place in this. They just blind you. Then you can't see. You just see your ideals. You may act according to rules and regulations, but be strapped inside and live in subdued fantasies. How would it be to live without any ideas about how we should live? And see how we do live. And really want to understand that. Thoroughly, deeply, completely. Which means you have to attend from moment to moment. Here. As thoughts and feelings arise. When there's clarity, there's no confusion in it. You know what you need to do.
Toni, you often talk about just objectively seeing and accepting the way one is. Yet I find a real dichotomy there. If I've been really angry or mindless or whatever and caused a lot of pain, and I see it and I feel it, but I still, I just can't accept it within me. It's like that's why I'm practicing, and I feel this real dichotomy. Maybe it's because I'm not seeing at that moment, but often it feels like seeing the way one is in situations is so painful, it's just impossible to accept it.
But I never talk about accepting.
Well, not condoning or not rejecting, but just
see.
Isn't that just accepting?
No, it is not accepting.
But you never talk about like working on it, seeing this anger or things within oneself and trying to get beyond. You never talk about, working in a concrete sense on these things because you can't do it. And so I've always had this sense of, just accepting, and I feel a real dichotomy and resistance there.
No, it has nothing to do with accepting. Who is the acceptor? That's the very stuff that comes up. Anger comes up. Who is to accept it? There's just anger. Can that be seen? Without condoning it, without accepting it, without condemning it. We never do that. That is the summation of energy and attention and action. What happens when anger comes up? Well, there's inattention, obviously, or else it wouldn't come up. And then, when attention sets in, isn't there immediately the thought, I shouldn't be angry, I'm bad, or I have a right to be angry, or it's disgusting how angry I am, or I should accept it, which means thinking.
There's just a feeling of the pain one has caused and being tired of causing oneself and everyone pain all the time. But there's always this wanting to get beyond this and not be like that anymore. And I just find it, whenever there seems to be, I find around the house, the thing that really gets me the most, I'm always kicking our cat. Because I can't kick anybody else, because they kick me back. But, every time I do it, I just die, inside myself and yet it's a real routine that's there, and a real,
Why do you get angry? Why do you kick the cat? What happens that makes you so angry?
He constantly bugs me for food, no matter how much I feed him. And I just feel helpless, I guess. And I feel that way about everything at times, like, the kids and everybody are constantly bugging me for things that I can't really do anything about, and you just feel like, oh, everybody just please leave me alone.
And then you feel this person here, whom you come to see or talk to, she can't give you anything either.
Nobody can. So there's a real, the other question I wanted to ask you, which is sort of leads into, is noticing that as a Buddhist, and practicing as a Buddhist, there's always this kind of this despair and feeling of inadequacy because I didn't really understand what that meant or what I was doing. And now there's just this dryness at the lack of the ritual and the ceremony. There's just this sense of working all the time and never getting a vacation, a real dryness inside that, pervades everything.
When you travel to California. Have you ever traveled to California by car?
Yes.
Beyond Chicago?
Yes.
Come through. Well, I may have my geography turned around. Iowa, some of these states have this rich black soil in them. Then all of a sudden you're in the desert. Now we can drive through it fairly fast. There used to be times when people had wagons going through the desert. What do you do when you drive through the desert? You can swear up and down at it, you can get out of the car, but you can't get out of the desert, you have to keep on going. And the moment you don't resist it, think it's a curse, or it should be wet, it isn't wet, it's dry and hot. What is this state where there's no opposition and no resistance? Really? Not just words, not just vowing it or chanting it, but really doing it. No resistance, no opposition, and just that, the dryness, the despair, really the bottom of the barrel. Without any escape. It's not easy. And yet everything else, you try to do this, you try to do that, then you're just distracting yourself from the state you're in. What state are you in? If you really attend to it, see what happens. Where is anger? If it's completely seen, there's no running away from it, no justification of it, nothing. Not even the word anger. Then where is it? But we move in too quickly with all these conditioned thoughts. I should overcome it. I should control it. And this causes you new anger with yourself because you cannot control it. But you can see it. Or can't you? It's obvious when there's anger, isn't it? What is it? And it's not yesterday's anger, it's not the anger of an hour ago, it's now, this instant. What is it? It's really a gathering of energies and they go no place. There's no conflict with the condition. When there's no conflict, where could anger get its nourishment from? But we want a quick remedy. And there is none. There's no remedy. There's only seeing and attending. Right where we are. Without any ideal that gives us new pain because we can't get there. Conflict. Frustration with oneself or with the ideal. See this dryness you describe, that's in all human beings, and you can overlay it. But it's there, and unless it's been felt and lived with and gone through and dissolved in that, it's always there. No matter what you put on top of it, what kind of entertainment. Why is there dryness? Why? We talked here a moment ago. Why can't one live fully and deeply, openly? For one thing, one does so many things. So many things impinge upon you. It's not easy. 2 children and another one coming. In the house, and many obligations, social obligations, center obligations. Obligations? Can one say no sometimes to something? Was one afraid and one won't be liked there or not be thought of well? We always want to do everything. And we tear ourselves apart over it. No, there's no accepting of anything. There's no accepting of dryness. Who is there to accept it? That's the dryness. The me is that dryness. The dryness of memories and ideas and ideals. It's the me. Is that, what is that? Just thoughts. So there's anger, there's dryness, there's pain. Can it be felt here and there? We don't want to do that. Why not? We can't evade it anyways. It's surrounding us. It's everywhere. So why not give up the battle with it and be that? So completely that it changes. It does. You know, there's no other shore. The other shore is this shore. We want to believe in it, and anything that tells us about this, and we love to hear it, like fairy tales. But it is here. To live here without any conflict, any opposition to the condition we find ourselves in.
Do we know how to live without conflict?
So can you start looking today, this moment, what is this conflict? What makes for conflict? Why do I constantly live in conflict? I wake up in the middle of the night, I can't sleep, but I want to sleep. There's conflict. You wake up in the middle of the night and you can't sleep, so you can't sleep. Why make a problem out of it? You want somebody to like you and that person does not like you. Can you make that person like you? If you think this person ought to like you, you're in conflict. But when you see how it is, the person is not interested in you. I'm not talking, I'm just picking this up. So it is. And then one feels sorry for oneself. It's a new conflict. I don't like the way things are going for me. But what are the things, and for whom are they going? Can one live without conflict? Hey, if that question grabs you, you're going to look, what is conflict? Every time it comes up, and you look at it. How is this happening? I want something that isn't so. What is? Can I see that and feel it?
Is conflict bad? Is that you're not saying that?
Conflict is conflict. It's pain, frustration.
Sometimes the alternative to conflict that one chooses is to put it in a corner, and just sort of shut it away and pretend it doesn't exist. And I don't know if that's what I would generally do if I were to try to avoid conflict. That would be the only alternative.
It's not a matter of avoiding, it's a matter of seeing it, understanding it. And in the understanding, where is the conflict? You talk about seeing something and I don't see. I feel totally blind. Why? What is this blindness? Yesterday we saw, maybe some of you have seen this, a documentary. It was called The Last Nazi. Hitler's architect who is still alive, and he was interviewed. And at one point, the interviewer asked him, what were your feelings and how could you live without, I don't know what verbatim how you put it, what did you think about this mass murder that was going on, millions of people being killed? And he said, I didn't know about it. And of course he didn't know about it. He says, well, at one point somebody told me about concentration camps, but he said something like, don't go there, it's horrible. So I said, all right, I won't go there. If we do that, things that are painful, horrible, the violence in ourselves, we don't want to see it. We want to see it in others and fight it there, but you didn't see it here. Can you see it without conflict? That's the difficulty. We're so conditioned to be a good boy or a good girl. It's frightening, it's terrorizing to see violence in oneself. But it's there. If you don't see it, you kick the cat. And then you hate yourself for that. We can see it. We can see the fear. Seeing means being that, owning it, not shoving it away. A totally split person like this man we saw yesterday there. Completely ignoring. And it's not that man yesterday, it's us. Ignoring what is going on inside. With a complete, yeah, yes, so it is. That's not acceptance. Because there is no one to accept it. At that moment, only violence or anger or sadness. When there's a moment of pleasure, we have no problems with it. Except fear comes up. Is this going to last, or will this stay? And the moment that thought comes up, it's already marred. It's blemished. One is separated from it.
I'm afraid of feeling someone else's sadness. And I see that. Rather than feel that, I turn away or I become angry or there's tremendous fear of that overwhelming me.
Yeah.
And I see that, but I don't know how to let that happen. That's an idea. It will overwhelm me.
Yes.
Whatever happens, but
So So you let the idea prevent you from feeling another person's sadness. That other person's sadness is your own. It's not a different sadness. And who gets overwhelmed? What gets overwhelmed is wanting to be intact, not wanting to be sad. And that may get overwhelmed by sadness. Why not? Why not feel it? With no one there, this is really our basic fear, that there may be nobody there, that we may disappear as we know ourselves with all our ideals and images of ourselves, our existence. We're afraid of losing that. Which is another idea. All fears are fed and nourished by ideas, and they also spawn them. And we're just not experimental enough, explorers enough to all right, so I'll disappear, so I'll die, but I will not be separate from this. This sounds like a vow or resolution, but it isn't. It's either you do it or you don't. If you don't, you're separate. And that's pain. And then what do you do with that? You repress that. You don't want to feel that. It's a constant struggle with what's there in all human beings. There to be seen and to be seen so thoroughly that it's gone. Because there's no conflict. No me. We want to have that me. That's our base of operation. I think we'll sink without that, but it's this that sinks us all the time. To feel another person's sadness without any accusation, no fault finding, no guilt, just to feel that together. But now it's been mentioned to me by many people, you tell people to wallow in their feelings. You may get this feeling from what's just been talked about. Wallowing is the me saying, this is good for me. A certain pleasure in suffering, which is a real separation. Trying to use things for ends. You know, when you do painting, don't you? You walk through the fields sometimes, or through the woods, and in complete openness, just to see and hear and listen, with no purpose, no motive. Really just there being the fields, the air, the woods, whatever, the streets. With this same openness can one face sadness and joy. Openness to everything. Not just my pain or my problems, but what are my pains and my problems? You just need to look, as you say, one step beyond you, and it's there in the other person. So, this fear of being overwhelmed, what is that? Look into that. And what is it that is afraid of getting overwhelmed?
Toni, you used the word joy just now for, I think, the first time tonight. And it seems that we dwell so much on what we're feeling, what we're working on, pain and anger and hurt and sadness. And as I think about that, in this media-oriented world, I think 999 out of 1,000 pieces of data that hit us each day are the kinds of things that if one is really feeling the pain of one's fellow human beings, there wouldn't be much room for smiling. And it just seems like so many things are out of kilter. And if one deals with all of these and just sees them, it seems there's so little of the joy side and so much of the pain side that life itself just seems so out of balance. Even just seeing
is out of balance.
I'm out of balance. Life is out of balance. The world is out of balance. That's what I say. Yes.
But you said seeing is out of balance.
No, when one sees all of these things, one sees 999 painful things and one joyful thing. And somehow that ends up in my gut, and I think I lean to one side. The somber side, the serious side, I'm looking for that joy, and maybe looking for it is not certainly where to find it. Just being open to life, it seems. I ask, where is that joy? There is some certainly around me. There's lots of it around me, but there's so much more pain every day. And we sit here and talk about it.
We talk about it because this is what people bring up.
I know, and I too am bringing it up.
Yes. So why do we live so totally out of kilter?
I guess that's my question. And the Zazen, the 2 years now of Zazen, when I seem to get in touch with things, there certainly aren't many joyful things. I get
yeah, because those we've kept nicely in abeyance.
And to turn off the tube or stop reading the newspapers does not seem to be the answer. One has to know, who our president is, who our governor is, what part of the world is exploding tonight. It seems to me those are reasonable things for a citizen of this country to know.
Citizen of this country?
Any country, anywhere. To know that there are people in painful situations in Colombia and in Iran. And
who are these people? Who are these people in pain and in problems?
People like us, Toni.
And why are we in pain and in problems?
Well, I think we feel that pain. And we have a fair share of our own as well.
So is there a way? Is there freedom from that?
I don't know. When you see it, there's just so much of it.
Yeah, but who is the seer? There's a seer there who thinks there should be less of it, there should be this or that. That's this thing that keeps things out of kilter. Because there's already wanting something and being in conflict with it. 2,500 years ago, a man sitting under a tree said, "All life is sorrow."
I'm beginning to think he was right.
That isn't all he said.
Which remind me about the rest.
I don't want to quote any of that. He left everything. Now, I'm not advocating leaving home.
No, I don't intend to. I've got it too.
If he hadn't had no home, he would still have left to see whether there was going to be, there could be an end to sorrow. This last session, there was one man, and at one instant during the session, just kept banging his head, and he said, I thought it was sorrow. He kept banging his head, I thought it was sorrow. He said, there is none. There's none.
Could you explain that? There certainly seems to be a lot to me.
And this has nothing to do with what we talked about, this man who said, I don't want to see that. There's incredible sorrow in this world. And yet, can there be freedom from it? Which means no contributing to it? Which means no constantly blind and ignorant self-centered activity, which constantly adds, like so many streams, into this big pool of sorrow. Which means it has to be seen first. And with a quality of seeing that there is no me, that wants a different, that wants, no wanting, no expecting, and no fear to see. There's no fear.
One can confuse joy with pleasure too.
Yes.
Pleasure being something that one looks for oneself. Perhaps pain, the opposite of that. One looks to get oneself away from that. One knows what pleasure is and what pain is, but perhaps one doesn't know what joy is.
Yeah.
It's perhaps the same thing as confusing order with form. But to say that joy is the opposite of pain, or where there is pain, there is no joy, I'm not sure that's right.
Joy is no opposite. It doesn't have a cause either. It's either there or it is not there. And one has the me with all its concerns and all its contribution it makes. There can be pleasure, as you point out, but not joy. Joy is the freedom from all that. And we're afraid of it. That's the totally paradoxical and absurd thing, that we're afraid of our own freedom. And I don't mean a freedom to have this woman or this man at this time or that time. That's not freedom. That's, we went into this at the beginning. It's freedom from wanting, which has no imposition of rules or renunciation or anything of this. It's just no wanting. things to be this way or that way. Just flowing with it. And flowing with everything broadly. I've sometimes mentioned this Japanese sumi painter who pointed, who taught some people how to, with a few simple strokes, to have a fish or a piece of fruit or a twig of evergreen with a pine cone on it. And then, and in one of the lessons that it came over TV, he was doing landscape, and he said that's more difficult. And he pointed out there has to be earth, and has to be heaven, and earth, of course, was the ground and the water. I don't remember it exactly. And heaven was the trees upward and the clouds, and maybe a waterfall coming down. And then he put a tiny little stroke in the middle and 2 dots. The stroke was a bridge over the water, and the 2 dots were 2 people, and he said, that's man, that's accessory. But we still think we're the center of the universe. And therefore we suffer. When the universe has no center, then we may even be afraid to take a walk or to look. In this last session, there was a person who said, I'm afraid to look at a flower. I'm afraid. She's crying. Why? Say again, fear of being overwhelmed, losing this foothold, this toehold in the universe, the me.
Toni, concerning sitting alone, there's some of us who have like extended periods of vacation, but they don't coincide with the retreats. Is it advisable, and like that would leave plenty of time to be with our family and stuff, is it advisable to sit by ourselves maybe from like when we come here from 9 to 3 or 1 to 2 days, or should we wait until our vacations coincide with the retreat?
First of all, let me ask you, you're a teacher,
Yeah.
This is why...
Yeah, like I have 2 weeks coming up now, I have a week in February. It doesn't coincide with the retreat schedule.
Let's see, our retreats have to be coordinated with when the why can give us time. Now, your question is, what, can you come here to Mount Hope?
No. Is it advisable to sit on our own, like from 9 to...
Find out. I can't advise you.
Okay, I just wondered if there was a...
Yeah. Do it and see how it works. You have a little child at home. See how it works, how she'll work around you, how you work around her. If this is, we've talked about this, to the exclusion of her, oh, it's no good. But sitting, or what is a retreat? You mentioned to me once, you were trying to rush off, you were just plumping her down in the high chair, giving her something to eat, while you were doing something else, trying to get ready to come here, and then all of a sudden you saw her there, in that high chair. You saw her sadness too, didn't you say that? And yet, there was no distance there? And no conflict? Was it a retreat? You have to find it. How can I tell you? I can't. For you to leave your dates here so that we can do whatever possible to coincide time, yes, we can do that. Find a way. It doesn't have to be sitting all the time when she wants to run around with her. You have a vacation. Maybe she's looking forward to that.
Sometimes, though, the best thing isn't just to be with, you can be with somebody and not be there physically. It may be the best thing for Claire and your family and stuff to have some time, quote, alone. And it's not alone because you bring that back, or that quality's there, and she'll pick up on it. You can go to the movie or you can look at a wall,
Yeah.
So my question is, some people say, don't go off by yourself and do this for a day. This is very dangerous. You can get mixed up with something. That's the question. You
get mixed up?
Yeah. Some people say, don't go off and do that. You'll get yourself in certain mind states. It could be dangerous. That type of thing.
Now, what do you mean by the retreat by yourself?
No, just, how we come here and we sit for a day.
Yeah.
To take a day out of, 2 weeks. Go by myself and sit from 9 to 3.
And what is dangerous about that?
I don't know. But, some people, I just wanted to ask your opinion. Some people advise against that. I don't have any problem with it.
In the beginning, when our son was young, I used to go only to 1 and 2 days sesshin, or just take 1 or 2 days out of a long sesshin. It was possible then. And he did miss me, but coming back, there was that quality of no conflict.
Yeah.
Nothing between us. I could say things, he could say things, and there was a real, deep understanding. I didn't go on 7 days retreat. He was very, very pleased, and I was very much afraid of hurting him. I thought that what goes for here may not hold for someone else. Someone else may need to do this, and each one has to look at the total situation, and you can do it. You can do it. You don't need to ask someone else. It's all right. We can discuss it together. And you'll see how it works out. But the next time it may be different. You can't even learn from one time to the next. Always be open and also ready to drop something when something doesn't work. Pick it up some other time. Not get stuck on anything. Any further questions? there any announcements?
Yes. Okay, finally. The last day to apply to the upcoming January retreat is this Sunday. It's earlier than usual. The hot tub is now open to the public Saturday evenings from 7 till 10 p.m. Please call to reserve a slot so that we can see if people get accommodated. There's no charge, but please bring a towel and shampoo. And for those people who wish to do this, everybody who wishes to do this will need to have a sort of hot tub orientation to learn how to work it. And that happens every Thursday night, that is tonight after the sitting. People interested see Stu in the hallway afterwards. And also the donations rack is open downstairs. People wishing to go down can see me in the hallway afterwards. Thank you.